back, everybody, to another episode of Within Zionism. Here with Ozzy Fine and Moshe Schwartzberg. Hello, Moshe.
Hi, Ozzy. How you doing?
Good. Let's get right into it today. Part 3, I believe, of History of Zionism. 4. Thank you for the correction, Moshe. So, the first peace plan was in 1936, the Peel Commission. Moshe, you want to start talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, the Peel Commission was a committee that determined that the cause of the Jewish and Arab conflict was that both the Jews and the Arabs were trying to live in the same land while they were two different ethnicities. I don't even know why they decided that they can decide the idea of the conflict. Personally, I don't think that that's the reason for this conflict. It's more like, okay, yes, in general, that is a problem.
Well, it is. I mean, the whole conflict is that we believe that we belong in the land, and they believe that they belong in the land.
Yeah, but I don't know. This is a committee from external forces, and I want to get into this a lot more as we go through this episode.
Where is this committee from? Like, what is the Peel Commission?
So the Peel Commission was a committee basically from the Brits, because, yeah, it makes sense that it was...
So it was a British committee.
Yeah.
And so basically this British committee decided that they're determining the cause of the problem.
Yeah, which they have no right, or whatever you want to call it, to do that. Like, I feel like, and I've heard this...
Well, they owned the land at the time.
Yeah, but...
It was their land at the time, and they realized that they were in the land, and then these two other nations are coming and trying to take over, basically.
Yeah, but what we saw in previous episodes, that throughout time, they agreed to give us the land. So, the whole entire...
Right, okay, fine. So whatever it is, that's how it was, right?
Yeah.
Whether they had the right to or not, whatever, personal opinions aside, the fact is, the committee determined the cause of the problem, which is the Jews and the Arabs were trying to live in the same land. At the end of the day, that was the issue that they came to the conclusion that was the issue. Now, they tried to be heroes, they tried to solve the issue.
Yeah, their solution was to split the land. 17% of the land was going to the Jews, while just under 80% would go to the Arabs. The rest, including Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, as we'll see many times throughout this episode, are under British control, or international control, but this time specifically British control. This specific peace plan heavily favored the Arabs, yet, as we will see many times throughout this episode, the Jews accepted and the Arabs rejected. Now, I don't know why people say this so much, but this is one out of, I think there's going to be 6 in this episode, peace plans that have been proposed, and every single time, the Jews will agree and accept it, and the Arabs will deny it.
While I was doing my research on this, and, we were going over the general script, I was like, we can make a theme song out of this, and the Jews accepted and the Arabs rejected. So
yeah.
If any of our listeners can come up with a good theme song for that, feel free to share it.
Yeah, several times while reading through it and make sure we didn't miss anything, it was information. The Jews accepted, the Arabs rejected. It's very repetitive, and that's just one of the reasons I feel two-state solution is not the way to go. It's just not going to work. So next...
But we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah, next in line, we've got the 1948 UN split.
So this we talked about in previous episodes. This was, 1948, the British Mandate, all that stuff that happened basically leading up to the War of Independence.
And the creation of Israel, and it's just another time where the Arabs could have gotten a country. They denied it. Jews accepted it. Mixing it up there. And...
Come on, Moshe, you gotta stick to the theme. The Jews accepted, the Arabs rejected.
Yeah, and look, now we have a country and they don't.
Right, so in this, if we're, we gotta specify it. We talked about it in previous episodes, but now we're gonna really, specify things. So basically the UN decided to end the conflict by creating 2 separate states. So again, this was a 2-state solution. Jerusalem was supposed to be international territory, while 56% of the land was going to the Jews.
As we mentioned in other episodes, most of it was either impossible to protect and keep control over, because it was 4 kilometers wide. In some places it was even less, while also just the general type of land was the desert and useless for the farmers, which was most of the economy back in the day. So, as we said, this started the War of Independence, where the Arabs call it the setback. If I'm not wrong, they call it the Nakba.
Nakba Day.
Yeah. And look, another one. The Jews accepted, the Arabs rejected, and we got a land. At this point, they're just trying to take us down because they didn't agree to a peace proposition that generally favored them.
I was on Twitter the other day and I was debating with this Palestinian, and he was saying that all they want is land. All they want is a little bit of territory and this and that. And like you could see from what we're talking about now and what we're going to continue talking about in this episode, they've been offered land so many times. I mean, the 1936 the Peel Commission, Jews were supposed to get only 17% of the land, while just under 80% going to the Arabs. That's a lot of the land. And they were like, what reason did they have to reject that? They wanted all of it. They have to be willing to come to an agreement. They can't expect to just no peace and we give them the land.
Yeah, basically what we can see and we'll see throughout this episode is they want 100% of it. They don't want us here at all, and they're not willing to hear anything else.
Right, so let's move on to more of the solutions that were brought up, different plans.
Yeah.
So the next one is 1967. This was the one in the 6-Day War.
Yeah, it wasn't the normal peace plan. After the war, Israel, because of international pressure, gave back most of the land they captured during the war, the Sinai Desert and other areas. Because of international pressure, they had to give it back. They offered the land in return to peace. So they're like, okay, look, we have to give this back. We have international pressure, but let's see if they're willing to do it for peace, because we can see throughout Israel's history, international pressure isn't all we care about. That's a different problem. So it was an attempt for peace, but it wasn't really a two-state solution. The Arab League met in Sudan and issued the famous 3 no's. There would be no peace, no recognition, and no negotiations with Israel. These we'll see come throughout history many times, as in the BDS are not willing to recognize anything that comes out of Israel.
Or negotiate.
As we see many times throughout this episode, there is no such thing as peace, no negotiations, which we'll see in the next one. And it's just...
On their part, we're saying.
Yeah, on their part. Sorry, I didn't think that wasn't obvious. Yes, on their part, these 3 no's are just very obviously...
On their part, there's no negotiating. There's no willing to lean in towards us a little bit. I'm saying just even a little bit at all. The 6-Day War, what the Jews did, they offered the land in return for peace. I think that's insane. I think that was not even smart on the Jews' part, but that's besides the point, because what's done is done. But the fact that they won the war, they won so much land.
Well, throughout time in history, Israel gave back beyond just the Sinai land and other places like that. We gave back the Gaza Strip, and look how that brought us. We've had many small wars. Just, what was it at this point, 4 or 5 years ago? Something around that time. We had the whole recent thing at Gaza, in the Gaza Strip, where it was just, they shoot rockets at us, and then we have to respond. That's another reason why two-state solution, giving them land, doesn't actually help us with peace at all.
Well, this one was supposed to be give them the land in return for peace. It wasn't even a two-state solution. It was giving them the land.
The Gaza Strip is also... They're bombing us a ton.
I meant the 6-Day War.
Right. Yeah, so
when
both
that
this
happened.
And the Gaza Strip are both attempt at just peace. No two-state solution. It wasn't a crazy thing. It was just stop bombing us. Let's have some peace here. And then we've got the 3 no's. So in the year 2000, at the beginning of the new millennia, new things happen. Let's try another peace plan. So we've got the Camp David Summit. Bill Clinton, the president of the United States at the time.
Wait, let me just cut you off a second. For everyone who doesn't know, Camp David is a country retreat for the president of the United States, owned by the government, and a lot of important events happen there.
So yeah, Bill Clinton invited Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Palestinian Authority Chairman Yasser Arafat to Camp David. He invited them for a peace negotiation summit. Now, if you remember the 3 no's, as you can tell, this won't go well.
No negotiation.
Yeah.
This won't end well. This is what you could predict.
Yeah.
So the Prime Minister of Israel, Barak, offered to form a Palestinian state, initially on 73% of the West Bank. This is based on the Israeli definition, and 100% of the Gaza Strip.
Yeah, so this might not be the best peace plan towards the Arabs, but if you remember, we've got the UN split and the Peel Commission, which heavily favored the Arabs. I feel like it's a time to balance things out, and again, no negotiations.
I think it was a way to see if it was, a bit reverse psychology in a way, because if they were saying no to these propositions that were brought to them more in their favor than the Jews' favor, so let's see the other way around. Maybe they'll say yes to that.
Yeah, but once again, say it with me, the Jews accepted, the Arabs rejected. We're totally coming up with a theme song at the end of this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so next in line, 8 years later, 2008, Ehud Olmert and Muhammad Abbas. Mahmoud?
There's no good way to pronounce that in English.
No. I think it's
Mahmoud.
Sure, Mahmoud Abbas. Ehud Olmert, the Israeli Prime Minister, and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas sat down, as we said, for a peace offer from Olmert. So this time, Ehud Olmert, the Israeli Prime Minister, offered this peace plan on his side. So Olmert agreed to give up control of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, which is the Jewish holiest site, and the area would be controlled by a special committee with representatives from 5 nations, which are Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Palestine, United States, and Israel. Once again, a lot of external forces taking care of what happens in Israel, because no one's willing to just leave us alone, try to figure it out on our own. There was a map showing the land after what would be the land after the plan would go into motion. For some reason, no one really knows. Olmert did not give Abbas a copy of the land, of the map. Sorry. Still, we have no clue why this happened. It's just a map, but for some reason he didn't give it to him. After 36 meetings, the Palestinians called to delay the next meeting. Later, they said they'd call the Israeli government about further negotiations. Now, Ehud Olmert told interviewers once, "From that time, I'm still waiting for Abbas's telephone call." They never actually called. Again, no negotiations, no recognition, no
Again
peace.
with the 3 no's.
Yeah. So once again, Jews accepted, Arabs rejected. This is number 5. So up until now, we've got Peel Commission 1936, heavily favored the Arabs. 1948, UN split, heavily favored the Arabs. 1967, not a two-state solution, just a peace plan, kind of in the middle there.
I think that even more so favored the Arabs.
Why?
More than the 2-state solutions.
Why?
Israel won that land, and they literally just handed it back to them for nothing but peace.
And in the end, we didn't even get the peace.
Exactly. But I'm saying even that was even more heavily...
Okay, I see what you mean. So we've got the year 2000, the Camp David Summit, which, I don't know, that's kind of towards the Jews. 2008, Olmert and Abbas, which we don't actually know. It's kind of neutral there. And which brings us to our most recent peace plan, which we will get into.
2019, Trump. Donald J. Trump.
And his plan of the century. The plan gives Palestinians roughly 70% of the West Bank. The plan called for a land swap, but would not give a one-for-one land swap, which means we give them a settlement, they give us a settlement. It would not do that. It would basically, we'd give 3% of the land, they'd give us 1% of the land. That's the general thing. The peace plan argued that Palestinians should not get 100% of the pre-1967 territory, which was the Six-Day War, what we gave them back for the peace. So, once again, the Jews accepted, the Arabs rejected, but this time I feel like it was a bit different, because within the Jewish community, people disagreeing and agreeing with it. Yes, the government agreed, but that's because it was a lot more of... It was even more heavily favoring the Jews than the Camp David Summit. I don't want to say why, but it clearly wasn't 100% people wanted it, which I don't know if throughout time it was always like that.
Yeah, so those are the 6 peace plans that have been offered, and those are the 6 rejections.
Say it one last time. The Jews accepted, the Arabs rejected.
So yeah, we just see from here that peace has been offered and negotiations have been attempted and land has been proposed, and all the ideas that have been brought up, they're always rejected by the Palestinians. And like I said before, this Palestinian that I was debating with over Twitter, who says that Israel is not willing to give up anything and that this or that, look, our personal opinions aside, Israel has tried to give up so much land for peace, and we don't even get that in return. So how does this Palestinian say these things to me?
Yeah, I've also been doing a lot of debating online. I've personally been focusing on Instagram because I've had enough of people on Twitter. And I have come across a few really nice people who are actually willing to hear what I say. A few people who are just willing to curse me out and don't care about what I'm saying. But within the people I am willing to hear, they all have this view of Israel that we're just out to take control of the entire world, not willing to even talk about peace, and we just hate everyone on right and left. So as we see here, that's not true. We've attempted peace 6 times, and throughout time there will probably be a lot more attempts at peace. I'm not saying at any point there will be, there won't be. That's something that no one can really predict. I hope there will be at some point. I believe with enough people listening to each other and talking, we might actually be able to get some sort of peace.
As much as the authorities and the prime ministers and the leaders and the chairmen and the presidents and this and that, as much as they're the ones that at the end of the day they make the decisions, it's up to the civilians and the little people like us. We're doing what we can. We're getting our voices heard. We're talking about it. We're sharing our thoughts, and we're sharing facts, and we're trying to share the truth. At the end of the day, we're humans, and the only way for humans to make peace and come together is to talk. If 2 people are, not agreeing on something, and they talk about it, they'll come to a conclusion. Maybe it'll be better for one person over the other, maybe not, maybe they could find some, a common ground or whatever. But at the end of the day, any 2 humans in this world, you put them in a room, they'll get along. That's what we need to do. It's really important to just talk about it. Don't hate people for having the opposite opinion of you. If you strongly believe in what you think, then bring it to a place where people can hear you and really understand, and you could try to work on a solution there. But to just hate and to send out, bad tweets and posts and, start these anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist organizations, I think that's wrong, because it's just spreading more hate, and it's showing people in a way that they're not that, and it's wrong. And again, people just need to talk to each other and find a common ground. And
okay, so that's the end of today's episode. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions about any topic that we've covered, haven't covered yet, we've gotten a few people who found us on Instagram and asked. So either find us on Instagram at Within Zionism, or go through our website. We don't have our own domain yet, but as of now, it's withinzionism.wixsite.com/podcast. We're working on getting our own domain. For right now, that's what we've got. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter. Let us know what you think in the comments, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
And you can also support Zionism and support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and again, following us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and sharing and commenting.
Yeah, actually, on our last episode, we had a few people actually debating in the comments. It was really cool.
One last thing before we go, Moshe. I want to thank our international community and everyone in our audience for listening. This is our 7th episode. We're not that far in yet. We've covered a lot of topics and interesting history, and in future episodes we're going to be talking about our opinions, we're going to be having guests, we're going to be hearing stories, and a lot more is coming. I just want to take a minute to really thank everyone who's listening. It means a lot, because in the beginning, when we were just seeing these numbers show up on the screen, it wasn't a lot, but the numbers that they were, it was like, okay, there was 1, then 2, then 3, and it went up from there. But then after that I started to realize every number that's showing up as a listener on our website or on Spotify or wherever it is, they're not just numbers. These are people who are listening to us, and this is the support that we need. So thank you for everyone around the world and in Israel who's listening and supporting.
Yeah. Also, we've added iHeartRadio to one of our podcast listening options. We've got Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and a few others. If you don't have any of those, you can listen on our website.
Stay safe, everybody, and have a great day, as usual.